Hey everyone, Ray here with Rinksworks, back on the 71 Nova. This video is how I replaced the driver's side floor pan. I had previously done the passenger side. I also did the toe board, most of it, and I encountered a lot of rust and problems along the way. Inner rocker was rusty and corroded, so was the body mount under the floorboard and toe board. So I addressed all of that, and this video is very in-depth of how I did it. I think if you're an old pro, you probably find this really boring because I went so in-depth, and you've probably been there, done that kind of thing. But if you're new to this, like I was, or I am, but I show you everything detailed. So I think I'm going to have to break this up. It's going to be really long, I think. I'm going to break it up probably to 3, maybe even 4 parts. But I think if you're doing something like this and you haven't done it before, I think this video will really help you out. So here's a before picture. Now here's an after picture. And if you want to see how I got there and see how I fixed everything I found along the way, there's nothing hidden. You'll see it all. Stay tuned, and I'll show you how I did it. All right, so let's get started on this thing. Driver's side. As you can see, it's in pretty bad shape. Now, I already did the passenger side. I wanted to learn what I was doing a bit before I put all this on video. I tried to video that, but it just became a nightmare. But I think this one will go better. So, we'll get started. In case you're wondering, yes, I was driving it like this. When I got it, it had a plate over that screwed down and a plate over the back that was screwed down. But of course, I took those off to see what was going on. So anyway, I'm going to pull this seat out, and then we can clean it up a little bit. We can actually take a look at exactly what we have going on. We'll look under the car, and we'll come up with a plan. So I'll bring you back. All right, seat's out. What I'm doing now is I'm just using this little scraper, and I'm digging out the seam sealer that was in here. It comes right out. It's old and soft and brittle, but removing the seam sealer, I removed it around the seatbelt bolt here, and I'll do the same thing. I'll take all that out of there just because even though the floor is only going to come to about here, we'll just re-seam seal all that anyway. So, but I want to show you underneath because there's 2 floor braces under here. One's here, one's here. And I'll show you underneath what it looks like so you can have an idea of what we're dealing with. Okay, hopefully you'll be able to see this okay. So, this is looking towards the back of the car. I've already cleaned up a lot of this area. This is where the floor is going to end, right in here at that hump. You see there's a brace here that the floor sits on. And then over here, as we move towards the front of the car, there's a floor brace here, and then one up here. Also, we have a brake line and a fuel return line. So I'll pull these bolts out and pull all that down. I'm actually going to remove the fuel return line because we're not going to reuse it. Another bolt here, and that'll pull these out of the way so we don't accidentally cut them while we're cutting the floor out. But what I'm going to do, as you can see, I started a bit here. I'm going to scrape some of these clean a little bit. It's all going to have to be cleaned up anyway. The braces are. We're going to get the whole floor off of them. But we'll clean all that up before I start to get too serious about cutting into some of this because this stuff likes to burn. So I'll probably scrape around the edge of this to give us a little bit of room so that we're not cutting through all that junk and starting a fire. So I'll do some scraping and then I'll bring you back and show you where we're at. Okay, here's a little update. So I've cleaned up. Well, first thing I did was I pulled the brackets out of the brake lines, or brake line. There was a fuel return line here, not a fuel return line, but a fuel vent line here. I just pulled that out because that went to the charcoal canister that's no longer in the car. So we pulled that. And then what I did was I just cleaned up a little bit on the edges around the floor braces. The car's pretty low, so it's probably might be a little bit difficult to see all this. But so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drill some small holes along some points of the floor here, and then we'll up top we'll just connect the dots so we have a place to cut it out. I just don't want to cut into the floor brace. Not that we couldn't fix it, but might as well avoid that. So if you look here, this is the front floor brace, and you'll notice there's a little protrusion here. This is the mount where the seat nut mounting point is under here. So we're just going to avoid that now, looking towards the back of the car. This is the other floor brace, and we'll do the same thing. We'll just drill some holes, connect the dots up top, and cut it off. Hope you can see this okay. This is not necessary to clean all this off like I did, but the reason I did it is because when I did the other side, my grinder got so gummed up with this stuff that it just bugged me, so I just cleaned it back a little bit. And then this is the very back of the floor. And this here is the brace that the floor sits on in the back. So I cleaned up along here a little bit in here, and we'll drill some holes along there as well so we don't drill or cut into the bracket. And then we'll just start cutting it out. So there's actually a lot of holes, some rust and some holes that were made from sheet metal screws in this because somebody had put some like aluminum or super light steel patches in here, just screwed them to the floor. But the holes that we drilled, I said to be careful, are along here. And what we'll do is we'll cut. We're going to stay below the seat belt bracket here. We'll come up, and I'm going to put a straight edge across here so we don't accidentally drill into the floor braces. So I'm going to have to do that off camera, but so I'm going to come down. I'm just going to hit, do a straight edge to all these holes that I drilled, not the other ones that are in the floor from other things over the years. Same thing here. We'll draw a line across all the floor holes that we drilled. I'm not going to cut the front out yet because you see those two cables. One's speedometer cable and one is the shifter cable. So we'll wait because we have to get those out of the way. So we'll cut out this section and this section. All right, so I don't think I actually showed you guys the floor we're putting in. So this is from AMD. That's the back towards the rear of the car. This is the front. You can see it's got a little bit of the toe board with it. Factory, the floor sits in, and this would actually be cut off right through here somewhere. And then the toe board would come down, and then this would rest on top of that, and it would get plug welded together. But this comes up with some toe board, so I'm not sure how much we're going to use or what we're going to have to do. It might not be enough. But for now, anyway, let's go back to what we're going to do here. So as you can see, I got this all marked out. So we're just going to cut it along here as close as we can get for now. But I'm just going to cut out those marks. Now you can really see where the braces are there and here. So we'll cut out this section out of the middle. We'll cut this section out. Then I'll go under and move those two cables out of the way, and we'll cut that off. I'll probably go ahead and run this cut right now, but I won't cut it that way yet. So, and then you might notice there's a 2x4 there. I'll show you why I have that in there. It is to protect my brake line and the emergency brake cable. I don't want to accidentally cut them. I probably would miss them anyway, but just to be safe. No going back now. All right, cut that one out now. All right, let's take a quick look at where we are. So cut these two pieces out. Now I'm going to take you underneath real quick and show you by drilling those holes along the braces how close we actually got to the braces without cutting through them. Hopefully the camera, yeah, so you can see it pretty well here, I think. So here's the floor and here's the brace. So you can see I was able to get really close to the brace without cutting it. And same with here. Okay, so I got the shifter cable pulled down out of the way, and the speedometer cable, we're going to cut above that. So I've already moved a lot of the, I took a lot of the undercoating off here. It was so oily that it just peeled right off. So it's pretty well clean already. So we're going to just cut that going forward. Let's look at it from the top real quick. So again, here's the holes we drilled. So we'll cut that out there, and then we're just going to cut this all the way up to here. And we're going to stop about here because I don't want to cut all the way through. As you can see, the firewall piece, or the whatever, the floor actually overlaps it, and then it's plug welded here. So I don't want to just cut right through it. So we're going to cut up to here where the floor, this piece ends, and then we'll carefully cut this through and peel this back in layers. Because the toe board is here, you can see the floor is just rotted right off of it. So we'll just kind of peel this up in layers and see what we have. This is the mount underneath. Some people call it a torque box. And it's pretty thin, so it's in bad shape too. So what we'll do is we'll peel it in layers and then take a look at it and assess it as we go. So let's cut that out now. One thing I'm gonna do when I cut this, I'm going to keep this line. Eventually it's going to be up here because we want to get rid of as much of this rust as possible. Plus, we want to cut it higher than where it starts to slope out so that the floor will sit down. But for now, I'm going to cut it down below this sort of hump right here. I'm just going to leave part of this hump because the new floor has that, and then we can gauge, see how close it lines up, though eventually it will go higher. Okay, I'm going to get a cutter I can control a little bit better to cut from here over to here. Get that out. Well, we still have to peel all this up right here, but I'm going to get something I can control a little better to cut in there now. Okay, what I decided to do is I'm actually going to cut this right here all the way down to here and get this whole big piece out of the way, and then we'll start nibbling off some of these other pieces and dissecting it and moving our way up and see how much we have to do. So you don't need to watch that. I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, so I'm going to cut this off here now, and we can peel this piece off. And instead of using that big grinder, I'm just going to use this because I'll be able to control it better, hopefully, and cut it off without cutting into the floor back there. Yeah, let's try it. Okay, it let loose. Now, I think you can see how it let loose. All right, that's going to have to be cut out as well, but I wanted to get a look at all this, even though I know it's going to go. I'm trying to deconstruct it, see how it's all constructed. So there's spot welds along here, and I think what I might do may not even be worth peeling this off since I know I'm going to cut it anyway. Let's see. So I think what I'll do is, I think off camera, I'm just going to hit this with the wire wheel, get it down to the spot welds. And then see what it looks like. Maybe we'll just see if we can't just rip it off or something. We'll see. Okay, so here's the last piece of the floor. I just cut it here and peeled it back. There's no sense in taking that off of here because this whole thing's rotted. So I want to hit this whole area with a wire wheel on a drill and get as much of the rust off as I can. It looks to me like it's pretty rusty up to here, but it looks like we got some good metal here, which is nice because then maybe we can keep away from dropping the steering column. So this is the toe board. It comes down and it rests on top of this, which is it can be called a torque box or body mount. And this is pretty well rotted too. Toe board comes down, rests on this, then the floor comes in and rests on the toe board, and then that all gets plug welded together. So we're going to clean all this up with the wire wheel, and then we'll come back and see where we're at after that and see how much we want to start cutting out of there. So I'll do that now and then I'll come back. So grinding that rust off there really shows how deep pitting is. Take a look real quick and you can see maybe. how much deeper that pitting looks now. So yeah, I think we'll probably cut up here because this seems pretty good. So I'm going to pull that bolt and the one on the other side there. Get that hunk of carpet out of there so we don't catch it on fire when we cut and weld it. And then we're going to come back and cut the centers out of these and then peel up the rest of the floor. Okay, so I'm bouncing around here a little bit. I took the wire wheel to this, cleaned it up a little bit. I don't want to cut any of that out yet. What I want to do is I want to get the rest of the floor off of the braces that are underneath them so that we can take the new panel and kind of start setting it in here and marking where that panel goes to so we can see what we need to do. So if I cut that out and then decide, oh, we shouldn't have went that far or whatever, we don't want to make that mistake. So we're going to cut the floor out in between these braces. So the braces are like a U. They're up here like this, and they dip down and come down and then up and back over. And then the floor sits on the top of those and plug welds. I don't know if you can see the plug welds or not, but they're plug welded across here. So we're going to cut out in between the plug welds. I kind of marked this one already. Since we cut this floor really close to the edges of the braces on both sides, because we drilled the holes and then cut them, we know we're really close to the outer edge of them. You can see where the plug welds are, or maybe you can. And we're going to cut on the inside of those and get all this out, and then we'll cut the centers out, and then we'll be able to peel up where the plug welds are. So just going to kind of mark the braces are about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch maybe wide. So I'm just going to leave plenty of room so we don't accidentally cut the braces. And we'll cut them out like so. Now here, this is where the original seat bolts are. So we want to keep those. There's a brace that runs underneath the floor here. There's a brace that comes across on both sides. So we don't want to cut through that. So we're just going to kind of cut up to it. And then we can, once we can get in there, we can kind of see what's going on, and we can peel all that stuff off afterwards. So we can cut these now. We'll cut those out. Okay, I'm not going to cut these edges out with that electric grinder because it cuts so fast. I don't necessarily trust myself with it to not cut through the braces. So I'm going to use this because I control it a little better. Also, I don't know, I'm going to show you something. I don't know if you can see this right here. It looks like it's cut. It's not cut. Same here. That's not a cut. When they made this thing, it like folded. When they made the floor, it folded underneath, and it looks like a cut, but it's actually not. So that's still solid. But we're going to end up probably cutting around that area anyway. But I just wanted you to know that that's not a cut in the floor. So let's just carefully cut out the ends now. Again, you could have done that with the larger grinder, but I just didn't want to risk cutting into anything. If you look, I did actually cut into this piece here that holds the seat mount piece on. So, well, I went too far, but we'll weld that up afterwards. So I'm going to cut this one out the same way, and then we'll come back and see the next step. So we're gonna cut these here now. It's these pieces of the floor that are left over. Now again, the floor comes down and starts to come out this way, and I want to fit the new floor in where this is on just a downslope, because this curve in like this is going to stop the new floor from sitting down properly. So this is actually about right in here is where it actually starts to curve. But for now, I'm just going to cut it off to peel it up, so again we can get better visual of what's going on. So I'm going to cut this carefully so I don't cut through the brace. I'm just going to carefully cut through the floor there, here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one up just above where this weird crease thing is, because I know I'm going to come up at least this high anyway. And then we'll do the same thing, cut them off here, here, same here, here. And then I'm also going to slice this floor here so we can get all this peeled up and then see what we're actually working with. And it would help if I could find my gloves. Here. So I'm just going to carefully cut those now. I'll just start it and then I'll show you when I'm done what it looks like. I've already cut through the floor a bit here, as you can see, and looks like I just missed the brace, luckily. Okay, so I think you get the gist of what we're doing. We'll finish making those cuts and then we'll come back and start peeling this up. I'll show you how we'll do that. Okay, just real quick, I'm going to show you what I'm doing. I got all these cut. I did score the brace a little bit here. If it's too deep, I'll weld it up, fill it in. But these are now cut off here. So do a slice here, and then I'll peel this back. This side's cut off. Now this side here, notice there's a plug weld here. So I think I'm going to cut it like this, and then peel all this off. And you can see the plug welds. So that's what we're going to peel off after we get it all cut up. So I'll cut this here, and then we'll come back. All right, so the way I'm going to peel these up, I'm going to use a chisel bit, and I'm just going to punch that right through. This floor material is lighter gauge than the braces, so we should be able to cut through, lift that stuff off, break those plug welds without damaging the heavier steel underneath of the braces. So I cut I cut this here, and I cut this here. I think I screwed up here. I don't know what I was thinking. I even mentioned it that I hadn't cut this carefully through here, but I did cut through this brace, so probably get that peeled off, and I think I'm gonna have to fix that brace. But for now, we'll start peeling all this off. We'll peel these off. I'll show you what the process is gonna look like, and then I'll kind of finish it up off camera so you don't have to watch the whole thing. So you can see how it just breaks right through the weld. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea, and then we'll just come back and grind all the remainder of the welds off, get those smoothed out and cleaned up. So I'll finish this off and then I'll come back. Okay, before I go any further, I just wanted to show you kind of how this whole thing's constructed. So I started lifting this up. You can see that I cut through the piece that's holding the seat nut on. That's okay. I can either fix it or just cut it out. It probably doesn't really matter one way or the other. But you can sort of see what's going on here. There's some, bits of floor left as we cut through that with the air hammer or the air chisel. And then we'll just grind this off afterwards. But I wanted to kind of show you before you start cutting on your car how this thing is constructed. So it's just a plate that's welded on top of this floor brace with the nut for the seat mount in it. So anyway, I kind of peeled up some of this with a screwdriver, or some of this, to kind of get it lifted, and then I used the air hammer or the air chisel to start cutting through. And as you can see, I got just one plug weld left, and that'll pop off. And then we'll do the same thing here and all up through here to get the rest of that floor off. So that's where we're at. I'll be back. Okay, so now we'll start grinding out all these plug welds and the bits of floor that are still left on here. I'm just going to use like a 36 grit sanding disc on here. You could use a flap disc or whatever you got. So we'll just start grinding all that stuff off of there carefully. We don't want to make this any thinner than it already is. So let's take it. There's a little bit of floor right here left, if you can see it. So we'll start grinding that down, and then we'll be able to peel that last bit of floor off of there. Okay. So hopefully you get the gist of that. So there's divots here where the plug welds were, but we're going to just grind those all flat without thinning this out too much. So we're going to do that through the whole thing, and then we'll come back. So I've sanded all this down. You can see the divots that the old spot welds made. So we could actually, if we want, we could fill those with weld and then grind it smooth so that this is all back to level, which I may do. I did not do that on the other side, but I may do that here just to get the floor to be able to sit down good against these braces. Another thing I'm going to do, the other side wasn't like this. This thing sits way out here like this. I'm going to just cut this off where this brace is underneath here. So I'm just going to cut part of that off to get rid of it. And then, as you can see, I accidentally cut into this here. So I'm going to weld this up. And then my biggest mistake, I cut into the brace here. So I'm going to weld that up. Let's stitch up these two pieces here. Okay, so now that's filled in flush. A couple little spots that we can still hit, but it's okay. So there's those two. That one. And sorry about the camera. And that one. Ground down. Now I think I'm going to go ahead and fill all those divots in the braces and then clean those up, and then we'll come back and see what's next. Alrighty, so we got this side cleaned up, kind of welded in and ground down good enough. And I'm starting on this side here. I have a hole here that somebody drilled a hole through the floor at one point, probably to put in a seat or something, and just happened to hit this right here. So I'm just gonna, I had a piece of copper. This was just an old piece of 3/4 copper pipe that I cut in half and flattened out with a hammer. And I'm going to just use a C-clamp and hold it on here, and then just start tack welding around that hole to try to fill it in. So we'll get ready and I'll show you. All right, so let's give this a try. I've got the copper clamped on the bottom, and just so you know, I did clean up the bottom side. I just ground it off with this to get all the paint and grime and stuff off, so it's clean on both sides. So let's see if we can just start tack, and fill that hole in like this. Hopefully I won't block your view. It seemed to work pretty good. All right, let me get that clamp off of there, and we'll take a peek at it. Okay, so here it is. I'm going to go ahead and grind that off now and see how it came out. I don't think you need to watch that. So I'm just going to grind it off with this 36 grit. Do that real quick. Come back and take a look at it. All right, so here it is. That's a plug weld there. Plug weld here. So I think our hole was right in here somewhere. You really can't see it. That's plug weld. I think it was in here. Anyway, it came out really good. I should have showed you. It only took me about 15 seconds to grind that off with that 36 grit. And of course, it doesn't have to look perfect. Let's take a look at the other side real quick. It came out fine. I'm not going to grind on it much because I don't want to make this any thinner than it already is. So this is it right here. Seems to have a little bit of problem focusing in on it, but I think you can see it there. I'm not going to grind it anymore. It's the bottom side, and it's going to all get painted and everything anyway. So, but man, that worked quick. So, all right, on to the next step. Okay, so here we are. We've got the leftover floor pieces. We cut all this out. Now this is a leftover floor, and it went down and plug welded to the inner rocker. So we're going to take that out now. Now, the other side, when I did it, the passenger side, was easy because the inner rocker there was no rust on it. This one, now I have taken a wire wheel to this a little bit just to kind of clean it up so you can see the floor came down, over and then down, and then plug welded along here to the inner rocker. Now this inner rocker has a lot of rod in it, so I'm not sure how exactly yet I'm going to solve this. But if your inner rocker does not have rust and rot, you're going to cut down through here cut down through here along these braces, and then just stick your air hammer or whatever, where you can cut out the plug welds, and then peel this piece of floor off. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these, and I'm going to use my air chisel, and I'm going to peel it off the best I can, but I'm going to be really careful because, again, I have a lot of rot on my inner rocker. This is floor, this is inner rocker. It's not too bad up here towards the front, but towards the back, it's pretty bad. So this is the rocker here, and you can see the rocker is actually rotted. So, I mean, even the floor is actually like gone here. From this point here, this is old floor. It's gone, and then it comes back here. So the rocker's pretty rotted. So I'm gonna do some slices and pull this out, clean it up the best I can, and then come back. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. But if your rocker is not all rotted, this is what you do. Just get this out, and then we'll pick it up after that. Okay, where this floor comes down and gets plug welded along here, we're going to carefully cut the floor up, and then we'll use the air hammer and bust that floor out. Do it here, here. We'll cut this here, and again, towards the back, we have to be careful because that rocker is pretty rotted. So I'm kind of showing you what to do if your rocker is not rotted. So let's cut this out, and then we'll air hammer it out of there. Okay, I think we cut through there. Okay, so the floor in this area is now out. So you can see where we just kind of ripped through it and got it out of there. So we'll do the same thing over here in the front, and then in the back, we'll see what we can do. I may not use the air hammer, but I'm going to start cleaning that up and see what we have as far as rot in the inner rocker arm, or not rocker arm, rocker panel. All right, I'll do the same for the front now. And I'll cut this back a bit. So just real quick, I want to give you a bird's eye view. This is floor. And I'm cutting off the rocker here. So I cut it down here, pulled it apart, and now I'm just going through here with the air chisel and busting out the welds. So I'm just going to keep doing that all along. I already did the back up to that point there. And I'm still going to cut all this out here. I'll probably come down about halfway down this ledge and just cut around here and get this old floor off the brace that's underneath it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to trim up this floor a little bit more. I'm going to come up to here. This is the point, right? This line here is the point where this floor starts to kind of curve out. We want to get all that cut. We want the floor to, when we set the new floor and we want it to be able to go straight down, this will kind of hinder, if this curve here will hinder being able to get that floor to sit down. So it's going to take a little bit more out. And we have to cut this out anyway. So there's a brace under here that the floor sits on. And this is the end of it here. So that's why I have this mark. But I'm going to make a cut here, careful cut here, because this is right on the brace. And then all the way around to that point. I'm going to cut the, on top of this brace here, I'm going to use this because I can control it better and just kind of take my time with it. And then once I get to that point, I can just use the electric cut off wheel on the grinder and just zip that right off of there. So, okay, so as you can see, I cut all this out and I cut across here, but I didn't cut this last edge here. The reason I didn't is because this is sitting on the brace that's underneath and I didn't want to accidentally cut through that brace. So I'm going to start peeling this off the brace till we get over here and then we can, I think, make a better cut. So I'm just going to show you. I have maybe a 1/4 inch from where this brace is to where I cut this earlier. Remember I did the drill bit thing. But I can start actually peeling this up because the floor is plug welded to the brace underneath. So I'm just going to run the air chisel through there and start kind of peeling it up, working that way. Hopefully, if it looks like I'm starting to hurt this brace, then I'm going to stop doing this. Okay, so it probably would have been better had I made another cut right here along this bottom edge and pulled that section out so that this isn't trying to fold up underneath. So I'm going to probably do that. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I'll go ahead and cut this off so there's not a curve right here. And then we'll just be working with a flat piece. So. Okay. You can probably see that I have plenty of room to cut here because the back edge of this isn't it's not a brace. It comes up and straight up like that. So we'll cut this little flappy section off here. All right, I'm going to peel this up a little bit more and then cut along this line here and get this out of the way. And then we'll come back. All right, guys, so now you can see that I've got that floor cut off of here. I didn't damage this with the air hammer. Uh-oh. We'll worry about that in a minute. So I think I'm going to take a few minutes. I'm going to clean all this up, vacuum all the so far grinding dust and everything out of here just to kind of clean things up a bit. And there's a lot of crap. So we're just concentrating on the floor right now. We got the floor out. We still have to get more off the front, up that toe board area. We'll get that cut out eventually. But let's get everything cleaned up, and then we'll come back and assess what's next.